In this video, I'm going to attempt to traverse the entire width of the Red Dead 2 map on foot. But thanks to some survival mods and self-imposed rules, it is going to be more difficult than it might seem on the surface. See? Even the horse is already having problems. But why? Why even attempt such a feat in the first place? Well, it all started a few weeks ago, and you all know how it goes. We've all been here. You catch a show and see something incredible. A magician! A spectacle followed by restless nights thinking of nothing more than the magician's way of life. It seeps into your soul, burning brighter and brighter, until you have no choice but to let it consume your entire identity. You put together a magician's outfit and you head out into a local saloon to wow the crowds. But your best magic trick isn't really impressing anyone.
Shame on you! You really are the worst!
You realize you got nothing else to go on as the internet doesn't exist yet for you to even look up new tricks. Wondering if you've made a mistake, you come across a newspaper article about a new form of magician popping up out on the coasts. Instead of traditional sleights of hands and card tricks, they are now performing feats of endurance to wow the audience. This, you think, is something you can do. And that, my friends, is how John Marston has found himself tucked away on the far side of the map, ready to wow the world with his first feat of endurance. For he is going to walk all the way to Annesburg while being locked to the confines of the road. But this, my friends, is no nonchalant jaunt. This is a hardcore survival adventure worthy of a magician's glory. Now, while the idea of roadblock challenges is something I've been aware of, I hadn't even considered such a feat within Red Dead until one of you pesky commenters got in the way. So after a night or two of IRL restless sleep due to my brain spitballing rules to make this idea fun for me, I've come up with the following. As stated, the goal is to walk across the continent from the Sea of Coronado in the west to Annesburg in the east. And when I say walk, I mean walk. No jogging, no sprinting, and no good-for-nothing horses. Just a casual stroll from one end to the other. We know from studies done previously by Same Tai Studios that if we let the game choose the fastest route and have no reason to stop, this journey by foot takes about 3.5 hours. But do you think I'm gonna take the quickest, most efficient route? I didn't think so. This is John Marston we are talking about. We'll leave the easy mode for someone weak like Chris Angel. I'm gonna be going in blind, not even knowing the route I'll have to take until I'm taking it. And to accomplish this, I've drawn 8 equidistant lines across the map. Every point where this line intersects a through road is a possible navigation point. Upon starting this journey, a random point on the first slice will be chosen as the first checkpoint. And whenever I make it to one of these checkpoints, a random point along the next slice will be chosen. And so on and so on. Thus, the actual route might end up being very zig. When every new checkpoint is generated, I must drop a waypoint on it, and the red line drawn on the map is the path that I must abide to. Now, any good journey needs a threat of peril to make it exciting, which is why I'll once again be starting with no resources for life support, and will be running my own custom survival tuning mod. Everything it does is on the screen, but the big point for this adventure is that it will drain the health core several times per day, and a red health core will start to drain hit points, and that can be lethal. Everything needed to stay alive must be earned and looted from the road. But John won't be going alone for this trip, as he will be accompanied by a giant black horse. A giant black horse that will function similar to the sag wagon in cycling, or perhaps one could say, a nag wagon. Oh. The nag wagon will provide a few bits of logistical support. I'll be running the humidity and temperature overhaul mod again, so the horse will have a coat and mittens for John in case we end up in the snowy portion of Amberino. And the horse will also carry a select arsenal of firearms to use, but I'll be starting this journey with no ammunition. However, John won't be setting out with just his feet to stomp critters with. As a magician, he will be gifted the most magician-esque weapon in the game, and he'll have 8 throwing knives at his disposal at the start of the run. Walk. Since setting up camp all willy-nilly will take John off the road, that can't be allowed. But the horse is also here to help with that. Via the horse magic spell of Campus Anywhereus, John will be permitted to set up a campsite right alongside the road. But horse magic always comes at a cost, so for the nag wagon to cast this spell, a sacrifice must be made. A sacrifice in the form of discarding 1 stack of inventory from the horse storage. Doesn't matter how many things are on that stack, all must go. And finally, there is one more spell the horse can cast. Should John perish on this adventure, it may not be the end, for the horse is trained in the darkest of all horse magics, necroprancy. But to give life requires taking many lives, and the resurrection spell can only be cast if all 3 of the external horse storage spots are fully loaded with the skins or carcasses of the sacrificed. Should the necroprancy magic be invoked, John will wake up at the previous checkpoint and a new checkpoint must be rolled. Aside from that, I'm also running the law mod. Key changes being that it delays the time for the law to show up when far away from town, giving me time to walk away on foot. But when they do come, it'll be a posse with angry puppies. But how about I quit jabbering and we start this journey? John woke up at 6 a.m. and crawled out of his tent. It is time to reveal the first checkpoint. Okay, a short walk, but I should mention that I am doing this challenge with a brand new epilogue save I created, where I rush through the main story having done absolutely nothing to complete random NPC events so the world is as full as it can be. And this included not clearing any gang hideouts, which means this knob of the path is going to come real close to a gang hideout. We shall see if it will cause trouble. The first thing I could have killed was a bird. But let's be real here. Flying birds is going to be a tough call, as in order for the weapon to not be wasted, they need to die and fall and land on the road so John can pick it up for skinning. But this armadillo, on the other hand... So one of the few use cases where John is allowed to leave the road is if he needs to interact with the horse. Just because while I'm fairly patient, I'm not patient enough to try to whistle that freak onto the road when he feels like standing just off it a little bit. Okay? While I was having a face-off with this lizard hoping it would make a break across the road, I realized my default magician apparel was a bit too warm for the desert heat. No problem, I'll just stash the coat on the horse. The lizard made a break for it, but was out of range of my knife. But that was fine, as a moment later, there was an oblivious rattlesnake just sitting in the middle of the road. I was already starting to feel a bit hungry at this point, so I sacrificed the armadillo carcass for a campfire to cook my dillo and rattler meat for a snack. And with the threat of a gang hideout being on this route, I went ahead and did some shenanigans to acquire some ammunition. Turned out to be unnecessary and the gang member just postured a bit but never attacked.
Seriously, final chance.
The bullets quickly became useful though as I sent a few through a pronghorn that was running up ahead of me. Now the pronghorn may have died a ways off the road, but that was no problem. A little lasso action and it was now on the road and thus lootable, or skinnable, whatever. The first checkpoint was reached soon after that. The next checkpoint ended up in the middle of the map near Benedict Pass. No concerns about this leg of the journey, so off I went.
No damn time for you.
I considered robbing this rude man for supplies, but that plan was quickly dashed when I heard some Del Lobo gang members riding up on me.
Who's this here? Oh. Come on, maybe.
Behold, the flying knife trick!
You need some help.
After some looting and corpse fishing, John found himself with a nice supply of drinks and ammunition. And a fire bottle. I'll make sure to put that to good use if the situation gets extra sticky.
The hell with you.
It turned to night and I noticed a peculiar fellow walking the same road that I was. He too wasn't on his horse. and his horse too was carrying a carcass. It seemed obvious that this fool was also trying to do the same challenge that John was, but we couldn't let him steal John's thunder. So a plan was devised to remove the carcass from the horse to handicap the man's horse magic. Oh, shit. Wrong button. Well, maybe this will make him think twice about stealing John's trick. I mean, look, he even had throwing knives on him. Good for nothing, copycat. Some bounty hunters appeared in the area, and I had thought I was successfully out walking them, so I shot a pronghorn that was close to the road, and oh, the bounty hunters heard that. Oh, what a waste. None of them died close enough to the road to lasso, but I did get the pronghorn and cooked it up.
I don't like folks following me.
Bro, you just passed me! What the fuck? I passed some plants that were very close to the road, but were they legal to pick? Well, I'm playing with the rule that as long as John is on the road when the interaction command appears, it is legal to grab regardless of if the looting animation moves him off the road. But when it is this close, how can I actually know if I'm on the road or not? Well, it seems there is a handy-dandy function available to let you know if any spot on the map is on the road or not, so I wrote another little mod that I can turn on when any judgment call is needed. And in this case, the plants were off limits. Plantless, I continued on through sunrise, and then through a sandstorm, and then checkpoint 2 was reached. The third checkpoint landed midway between Armadillo and the Hanging Rock. Now, the GPS line going through Armadillo is a great time to mention a little caveat I haven't talked about yet. One of the other use cases where leaving the road is permitted is if the GPS passes in front of a shop. When that happens, John is allowed to head inside and buy and sell from that shop. However, I'm not allowing myself to trade for any weapons or ammunition. To kick off this leg of the adventure, I thought I'd show this man an illusion where it feels like he can't move. Ta-da! He didn't like the trick and got all yelly, which of course meant witnesses. Which of course led to more witnesses. Which of course led to more witnesses. Soon I had a big witness pile that the Necroprancer decided to stomp on. I don't know, maybe crushing some carcasses is needed for its horse magic mana pool or something. Well, I walked away from that mess, but not before nonchalantly just shooting a songbird out of the sky and landing it on the road. I'm gonna eat that songbird. The law came from the west, so I was able to walk away from the mess I made without confrontation. I had a pleasant stroll through Rio Bravo before knifing another snake and adding it to the nag wagon. I spied some people in trouble near Mercer Station, but unlucky them as they weren't on my route, so why would I even waste my bullets to help them if I wouldn't even be able to loot the bandits? Bummer for them. As I approached Armadillo, I did so with the knowledge that there is often a Dos Lobos gang event just happening in the street, so I started juicing for a fight. And good thing I did, because my deer carcass rotted at the same time, losing me the protection of the Necroprancy magic.
Horse!
You cheating sons of bitches!
I like how I slammed that Deadeye tonic and then just never used my Deadeye. But by the time I got done with all my rootin' tootin' cowboy lootin', the general store had already locked up for the night. The time skip mechanic to wait for the shop to open felt too much like sleeping for me, so I just left and proceeded to the checkpoint. And around 1:30 a.m., I had reached the third checkpoint. The next slice is the first big slice that can really start to throw a wild course at me. But when the dice landed, I only had to go to Owen Gia. but it was still going to be a much longer haul than any previous leg of this adventure. I was sort of hoping it would navigate me through Pike's Basin, but alas, I'll have to backtrack a bit before taking the boring old main road. I started to backtrack, and then decided to backtrack a little more as it was almost morning and that shop would be opening soon. I got there a little early, so I sat on the stoop and waited.
Come on in.
Who's that?
I don't know. It's just a little portrait somebody gave me once. I always quite liked it. Why?
No reason. Just seemed familiar.
Now, I just need to express how disappointed I am at myself for not giving John a big handlebar mustache to really nail this conversation as a joke. But anyway, I spent the money I had earned on various animal baits. Only 3 of each since I'm doing this run without an upgraded satchel, but I figure if ever there's a time for the baits to actually be useful, it is when I'm hungry and have a silly set of rules that only let me loot from the road. Right? As I was leaving Armadillo, these 2 other guys also set out in the same direction. One of them eventually got onto the road ahead of me, and I considered looting them.
You, mister!
Hello?
But once again, cue the Dos Lobos.
Hey, Lobos! There's a gringo here looking real pleased.
Time for some conventional magic. My magic hat! The threat was neutralized and I went to find my hat. So close to the road. But is it close enough? No! In my hatless disgust, I picked up one of the Dos Lobos hats as a compromise and got to looting. But boy howdy, that hat sure does clash with my wardrobe. I took one of the Dos Lobos as a necroprancy sacrifice, but as I was putting the body on the horse reminded me that he is a magic horse. And within the sphere of horse magic, restoring a hat is merely a cantrip. And poof! Just like that, the horse returned the hat to John's head.
Easy. You better get cutting dirt.
Time for you to get the hell out of here.
Where did you come from? What the? Well, if the game is going to spawn me a magic bison, I better not squander this resource. For the hide of a large animal can serve the necroprancer, and unlike a carcass, it won't ever rot. And speaking of rot, I've realized I've crossed all of New Austin with those snakes on my horse, and they too haven't rotted. Are snakes magic as well? What? That night as I was approaching McFarland's ranch, some more bounty hunters started tailing me. Thought I would have learned my lesson the last time, but I didn't. I spent a coyote skin to set up camp and spent much of the night cooking my meats and splitting my points. And as I was wrapping up, a commotion. That could have gone much worse had it happened moments earlier. But this is where I learned that John Marston, a man who can pull 1,000 pounds of dead horse flesh via a taut rope, somehow lacks the skill to do the same with an overzealous doggo. What the hell? No wolf sliders for Johnny, I guess. The next morning I approached the border out of New Austin, but it was a river crossing. And since John can't swim, if this is too deep, it could be the end of this trip right here and now. Well, gotta do a little cocaine gum to give him wings if needed. Huzzah! Surviving the river, I continued on and turned a sharp corner. A sharp corner leading up a hill into tall trees. Skinner country. Not going to lie, this stretch of the trip maybe had me a little bit worried due to the amount of hostiles possibly hiding in that forest. Well, at least there's one less rodent to come after me. But who knows what horrors are in store for John.
You're a good dog.
I did encounter some Skinners, but they were so preoccupied with some other guests that they never even noticed me. So aside from smiting another forsaken chipmunk from the earth, the rest of Tall Trees is pretty peaceful. Until I ran into this guy just sleeping by a tree. Now understand that this was by far the longest leg of the walk I've done, and at this point it had been 90 minutes since I left the last checkpoint near Armadillo. I really didn't want to risk dying to any law with the necromancer respawn so far back. But I also thought it'd be hilarious to lasso drag this poor guy out of his nap. And in fact, it was hilarious.
God, help.
And don't worry, I didn't kill that man over a harmless little prank. The law never found me, and I was soon rolling into the 4th checkpoint. Checkpoint 5 appears to be a straight and easy route. Nothing along the way gives me concern. It does pass through Strawberry, but along a route that won't let me use the shop. Oh well, off we go. I was feeling nice, so I decided to help this guy who was being attacked by wolves, even if I wouldn't be able to loot the carcass. But being locked to the road, there wasn't anything I could do at all to provide first aid, so I guess at best all I really did was prolong that man's suffering. Oops! I passed through Strawberry and continued eastward where nothing of interest happened, until I got ambushed by the O'Driscolls. I'm sorry. Until I got ambushed by the Laramie and/or generic gang that takes over for the O'Driscolls, who I will hereby collectively refer to as the Fodriscolls. But regardless of what they're called, their loot will be appreciated as soon as I... Jesus, I wasted my fire bottle! I took out my frustration on wasting my fire bottle by knifing another goddamn rodent with a lethal blow to its tail. Then I saw one of these assholes, and before I knew it, checkpoint 5 had been achieved. I camped in the fog for a bit to cook my food and craft my split points before rolling to the next checkpoint. A checkpoint which landed in the middle of the Heartlands. Possibly the shortest route I could have had from the last checkpoint. Off I went. I knifed a turkey and then decided to use violence to help a prisoner.
Please don't leave me in here. Oh, come on. Let me out of here. Ugh. Whew, thank God for that. I have no money to repay you, but I do have some information that might suit your skill set. The Valentine doctor is cozy with the O'Driscoll boys.
The who? I thought they were gone by now. Who's lying to me? Whatever. I looted some ammo and tonics and ventured forth. As the dawn light set in, I noticed a poorly set up Fodriscoll ambush. I bet those idiots weren't expecting someone to just slowly roll up on foot. Well, I pressed my advantage.
Time to die!
But really, looting those Fodriscolls was the last thing of interest that happened on this leg. I didn't even hunt any animals, which is okay since I guess the carcasses of snakes seem to be immortal, meaning I don't have to keep replacing the medium-sized carcasses on the horse for resurrection security. The first part of this leg was rather pleasant. I bet if I had a heat map of all the roads I've been down in the game the most, that the first part of the path would be one of the least ridden. But slowing to a walking pace and taking my time kinda made the sights to see on this bit of road feel fresh in a way. That was nice. Otherwise, I just shot a few small things for meat before trying to rescue this screaming woman who clotheslined John with her legs. But this woman, let's just say she had a colorful way about her words.
I can't keep sniffing this thing's ass! Come on! Quit playing with yourself and cut me loose! Rotten pig fucker!
She didn't give me any reward, but I did loot 7 revolver rounds from her captor. Cool. That night, I scooched over to the side of the road to let this man on horseback pass me. But if he wasn't an irritable pig himself.
You want to start something with me? Calm down.
Well, he didn't calm down, and soon he and his white knight over here were processed in a loot for John. No witnesses and no law ever got alerted from that interaction. I'm kinda liking this mod. I shot a ram and skinned it, and then I pulled a boner by hitting the wrong button and dropped it instead of putting the hide on the horse. Great. Was the hide now off the road and unavailable for me to collect? The judges say no! As I started up the hill into Amberino, I had a trio of riders catch up to me. I scooched over again to let them pass, but no! That wasn't good enough, and one of them had the audacity to drop the P word.
Ain't got no time to teach all you peckerwoods respect.
I tried to let it go and let them pass, which 2 of the men did, but not Seymour Peckerwood over here. He had to get rowdy. I took a few shots while fighting Mr. Peckerwood, so I quickly slammed a health potion to prepare for his friends to come at me. But they abandoned that Peckerwood. I finished the walk up the hill and made it to the checkpoint without any further incident. Before rolling the 8th checkpoint, I set up to cook my meat and craft my split points.
I got enough damn problems. You just stay away now.
Now this was the moment of truth. Will I roll a checkpoint close to Annesburg, meaning that this jaunt will soon be over? Or will I get boned and have to go all the way south to Saint Denis? Yes! The end is near! It didn't take long for me to end up getting into a little tussle with some fellow wanderers.
You better stop.
But it all resolved itself nicely with this man's empty threats.
What's wrong with you? If I shoot you, I ain't gonna miss. Right. Next time I'll put so many holes in you, the wind will blow through you.
I continued on until night fell, and that night I pulled out my lantern and admired the ginormous size of the wacky shadow it cast. But soon the joys of my shadow came to a halt as I heard the one sound I didn't want to hear. Unable to see the beast, I slammed a health potion for what was to come. That slamming delayed me just long enough for the cat to get the first blow in. It came again, and in the moment I had completely forgotten about Deadeye, a folly that would allow the cat to arise as the victor. Alive again at checkpoint 7 with an empty nag wagon. I had to re-roll the next checkpoint. Would the gods overlook the dark arts my horse just invoked and bless me with yet another nearby checkpoint? No. It looks like we're walking almost to Saint Denis. No longer having any death protection, my primary goal was to refill the horse. I quickly downed a skunk and added it to the spell. And then I spotted a sheep of the night and put down some bait to lure it into the road. And then I quietly slinked away.
Here now!
Quietly. But neither the sheep nor any nearby herbivores came for my bait, so I progressed. The next morning, while progressing through the mountain pass, I added a rabbit to the spell. All I needed now for safety was a large critter. During the descent from the mountain, I started to see a bunch of deer, but I didn't want to take any shots yet until I knew for certain that they were near the road. I reached a good vantage point on 2 deer and waited for them to wander closer, until some peckerwood rode by and scared them off. But with deer in the area and with good sight lines, I tried more bait. No deer cared for my bait, but some sheep of the day totally caught a big whiff of it and came running. Although I was now fully protected from death, I didn't have the overpowered protection of unrotting snake corpses this time. I don't even know if it's a real mechanic or not, but I have this notion in my head that unskinned animals take longer to rot and fall off the horse. So when I got this deer, I just replaced the sheep with the unmolested furry animal. Oh, get away, you overgrown stickhead! Well, and now after that jump scare, I now have a nice unrotting pile of Giga Stickhead skin. As I was crossing into New Hanover, one of my little animals rotted away. The threat of permadeath was once again real. I saw a turkey out past the road, so I used the last of my bait to try and lure it. But it never came. Having lost hope, I turned to see where my horse was and— oh shit! A hawk! Oh. But was that hawk too far away? Spat on the ground outside the boundaries of the road? Yes! Overnight, the other small carcass rotted, but it was swiftly replaced by an unskinned turkey. I then sacrificed a ram hide to set up camp, and it was during this camp session where I pulled yet another giant boner. See, I had forgotten that unbutchered animals can be cooked directly off the horse. I didn't notice this for a while, but I like to believe that this footage clearly illustrates the double take and confusion that flowed over me while I tried to figure out where they had went. Back to the terrifying world of mortality. And back to the agony of small animals not getting close enough to the road. As I drew near the bayou, I finally shot the shit out of a crow and had it land on the road. But do you know what? Do you know what? Crows are apparently pocket birds, so John stuffed it in his pocket instead of on the horse. Sheesh. It wasn't until I was well onto the boardwalks until I snagged the first suitable carcass. And at this point, I was just around the corner from the next checkpoint. And with that checkpoint reached, all John needed to do now to complete his great feat was to head north and march into Annesburg. Almost immediately, I shot another heron, which riled up some Lemoyne raiders who were up to no good nearby. This in turn riled up this man for disturbing the peace. Okay, Karen. Well, I got my second side animal for the horse and finished off the last raider before slowly meandering away from the scene. A witness saw what happened to Karen and wrote off the narc on me. At first, the law didn't seem to realize John was the one who disturbed the peace as they rode by. A tense moment, but it got even more tense further up the road when they came back and realized John was the good-for-nothing peace disturber.
Wait a second, let me talk to you. What's your business here? Give yourself up or die!
But this time, after having come so far and being so close to the finish line, John didn't forget about the Deadeye as he looked down the barrels of 5 firearms and 2 doggos. Now as for the rest of the walk north, I can't really say much of anything interesting happened. Well, except for this floating corpse. But aside from that, it was a pleasant stroll. John and the horse passed through Van Horn and continued on towards Annesburg. Both the herons decomposed, but that wasn't a worry as Annesburg was already in view. And around high noon, with the sun shining down on his face, John had done the impossible and walked into Annesburg alive!
Get moving, will ya?
The people gathered around in awe and gazed upon the spectacle that they were witnessing. But it wasn't over yet, for during those days on the road alone with the Necroprancer, he had carefully observed the ways of horse magic, and he thought he was ready to wield it, ready to become a real magician using actual magic. People of Annesburg, behold, the great John Marstagician!
Ain't no amount of money worth putting your life on the line.
Oh my. And that, my friends, is why if you are not a horse, do not f around with horse magic. No human can harness its dark powers. Oh, what a story that was. Check the description if you want the mods I wrote to emulate this experience yourself. I'm kind of a sucker for slow-moving challenges like this, and did enjoy myself quite a bit on it. I wouldn't mind doing it again in the future, but if I do, I might even pile on some more rules to make it a fair bit less peaceful than this run. Like needing to murder every passerby who doesn't act like a peckerwood or something. I don't know. We'll see if there is a next time. But until then, here's some other stuff I've done for you to watch. So without further ado, consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video.